This is the Environmental Protection Commission. Regular meeting and public hearing is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026. Before I start, anybody who's here for the 471 Mansfield Avenue, St. Paul's Church, that will be continued. So we will not be taking any testimony at this time. So if you're here for that, you don't have to stay. Getting on to our regular meeting, new business, EPC 22-2026, PL 26-81, 5 Oak Park Avenue, J. Bertoni, to maintain a playscape and related features proximate to the wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the west side of Oak Park Avenue, approximately 220 feet north of West Avenue, and is identified as map number 23, lot number 12. The zone is R1 third, and it is approximately 0.2 acres.
Chairman, the application has made its way to our agenda this evening to start the statutory time clock, accept the application, and to determine if a public hearing is warranted, and to solicit any very preliminary comments you may have as we initiate the review process.
Okay. We've discussed this in the past. Do you want to?
Well, the question would be, is I definitely think that there's a public interest. So based on prior decorum, we would say there should be a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
However, we do know who the interested participants are. Would we think that they would just come to the meeting, or do we just continue as standard operating procedure and have a public hearing?
I mean, I think that's your decision. I mean, as far as is there public interest? That's one of the factors for.
So the neighbors clearly have a public interest. So
So they would have to send notice to
for a public hearing.
feet. And no, you certainly may qualify.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an opinion?
I mean, I agree with what Michael said about how we do know who the interested parties are and they have spoken, but for the record,
I think specifically, this has been a problematic application, so I think the right foots forward would be to have a public hearing.
Okay.
okay.
I agree.
You agree? Okay. Do we need a?
Yes. And you have to state why.
Okay, I make a motion to hold a public hearing for EPC 22-2026, 5 Oak Park Avenue, for the reason because it is in the public interest.
Michael, can I have a second? Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Moving on, EPC 23-2026, 23 Blueberry Lane, A. Anderson Huber Jr. and P. Huber, to construct a residential addition proximate to wetlands and watercourses, Stony Brook. The property lies along the south side of Blueberry Lane, approximately 1,160 feet south and west of Ox Ridge Lane, and is identified as map number 7. The lot is 27, zone is R2, and is approximately 1.34 acres.
Chairman, like the preceding application, this particular application is made way to the agenda to start the statutory time clock, and it qualifies for acceptance, and to solicit any preliminary comments and determine if a public hearing is necessary. This is a small addition, fairly substantially distant from Stony Brook and some fringe wetlands.
I go first. I saw the application. I don't have any concerns with it, so I don't think we need a public hearing. I think it is does it need to come to the commission, or could be staff?
Yes, I mean, it could be, probably qualifies as an agent approval.
I would agree with that.
Why don't you just look at it and then come back to us, okay?
Yeah, I would say I visited the property. I agree. I think it's very small project. The water course does have grass leading up to it. I would suggest that they put some plantings in near the water course and clean up some of the debris that's been deposited in the surroundings of the water course. That would be all that I would recommend.
Okay. EPC 24-2026, 35 Fairview Avenue, J. Getier, to construct a residential addition approximately to the wetlands. The property lies along the north side of Fairview Avenue, approximately 250 feet west of Academy Street, and is identified as map number 16, lot number 42. The zone is R1/3 and is approximately 0.41 acres.
I'd like to proceed in two applications. It's made its way to the agenda this evening for acceptance and starting that statutory time clock for action, review and action, to determine if a public hearing is necessary and if you have any preliminary comments that we can write in a request for additional information if needed.
I reviewed the application. I don't really have any questions at this time. Thank you.
My only question is, I did not see anything to increase the conservation value of the property from doing this addition, so I would like to see a planting plan. And is there any drainage required for this?
It's really de minimis on the ground.
Okay, that was the only other question. And the last thing is just the survey needs to say revised because they added the bit about,
There's a date issue on the plan.
there's a date issue on it, right, because they added something, inland wetland, that the inland wetlands line was flagged. That's all I had. I don't have anything from also.
Okay, moving to old business, EPC 05-2026, PL 26-620 Driftway Lane, J. Wilcox and C. Wilcox, to maintenance dredge portions of a private pond. Project affects wetlands, watercourses, Tokenique Brook, and special flood hazard areas and the upland review areas. This access to this parcel lies along the east side of Driftway Lane, approximately 1,300 feet south of Tokenique Road, and is identified as map number 66, lot number 121. The zone is R1, and it is approximately 3.93 acres.
Mr. Chairman, the application was vetted at meetings held on February 4th and April 8th and May 6th, 2026. It's a maintenance dredge of a pond, important issues relating to drainage, water quality, the methodology of that drainage landscaping had been, again, thoroughly vetted at those meetings. Upon the completion of the testimony at that last meeting in May, the commission directed staff to draft a resolution for consideration at the next regular meeting.
Okay, the commission members have received the draft of the resolution. Any questions or comments?
No questions, no comments.
I just had a couple typo comments that I forwarded to you and to Rick.
Okay, considering those, can I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve EPC 05-2026, 20 Driftway Lane.
No, I have to
J.
second.
Wilcox and C. Wilcox.
I'll second.
Okay, second, all in favor? Okay, moving on. EPC 07-2026, PL 26-12, 5 Old Parish Road, T. Harris, to install a playscape fence and other related features proximate to wetlands, watercourses, and special flood hazard areas. The property lies along the east side of Old Parish Road, approximately 350 feet south of Middlesex Road, and is identified as map number 19, lot number 37, the zone is R1, and is approximately 1.48 acres.
Mr. Chairman, just a few brief comments. The applicant is proposing, as you had noted, to construct a relatively small playscape at the rear of the property that is proximate to the wetlands, includes the actual structure itself, the protective surfaces, a fence, and other related features. The property currently supports a single-family dwelling, with drive patios. It's served by sanitary sewer and public water. It's characterized by sloping developed uplands, wooded wetlands, and special flood hazard areas, and several water courses. The soils report was done to identify those areas of issues and concern. The special flood hazard area was mapped. We noted that there was at least 2 prior applications on the property involving constructions of patios and the actual replacement dwelling of the property has occurred in 2004 and 2011. The important issues to be evaluated under this application involve direct resource impacts, direct and indirect resource impacts, impacts on the special flood hazard area, consideration of alternatives, and the value of certain measures to mitigate for unavoidable impacts or improve the overall conservation values of the regulated areas and property. The project designer has provided a site development plan. The project encroaches no less than 15.5 feet to the designated wetlands. There are no direct wetlands, watercourse, or floodplain encroachments. Overall grade change is very low, not expected to increase more than 0.2 feet, which is about a little over 2 inches over what was there existing. 8 trees are proposed to be of varying sizes to be impacted as a result of this development. About 1,100 square feet of the upland review area will be temporarily or permanently impacted. The project engineer has submitted a statement confirming the absence of impact on drainage or the adjoining properties. Particularly important to them was how it affects the grade change. Direct water quality, there was a sediment and erosion control plan provided. Also stabilized the surface below the playscape is deep arced pine bill chips in lieu of some of the the more concerning surface treatments such as the rubberized materials. A planting mitigation plan has been proposed, and again to mitigate for the anticipated tree loft, filter runoff, and improve the overall conservation values of the property. They're removing non-native invasives, particularly using mechanical means by hand. They're introducing numerous trees, shrubs, and ground covers, true natives, and then the standard notes applicable to all planting plans coming before this commission have been applied. What is important in this application is through the process, pretty significant alternatives have been implemented, and they include, and they list them in the agenda summary report, is that they avoided completely the special flood hazard area, which would have triggered a great deal of study to demonstrate the absence of flood rise and other hydraulic impacts. They moved the playscape pretty substantially away from the wetlands as flagged. Increased it. They went from about 5 feet to about 16 feet, and with the actual structure itself, and then the play areas from 12 feet to like 25 feet. The actual area of play itself has been shrunken by about 70 square feet. The playscape was reduced in size to make it more manageable within that. And then the planting schedule has been altered to provide a greater collection, a more diverse collection of tree, shrubs, and ground covers to mitigate impacts and to address the concerns that, or the typical notations that this commission wants in terms of plantings, use of deer treatments, and all kinds of things. So the applicant is here this evening to answer any questions you might have. I'm available to answer questions. You can make reference to a letter from staff which reflected both our the requirements of our review and the comments that you provided in the February meeting. So with that, we move on to the applicant.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Good evening, I'm Barbara Wilson, licensed landscape architect. I've seen most of you before. So this property, this owner, we did go through 3 sort of versions. I submitted one, which you rejected. I drew another one, which I thought was even worse, and then the only one that we think is actually doable is, or you will accept, is the one that is before you. So I worked very hard on adding a lot of native plants and made it, some sedges, some ground cover, or, some perennials that are native, as well as shrubs and a few trees to replace the ones that were taken out. So, and we made everything smaller, as Rick said. So, do you have any questions for me?
I don't have any questions.
I just have a couple of questions, sorry. I think there are a total of 8 trees that will be removed.
Yes.
Could you sort of characterize the size and the condition of those trees that are being removed?
So most of them, I'm just trying to think which plan it's on. I thought I had a list, yeah. It's,
I saw you listed the types of them, but.
yeah, so the only one that really looked nice was this Japanese maple right in the front, which non-native. But the other ones were all kind of failing and skinny, mostly maples, red maples. And then there was, I think, just one other little hemlock.
There was a dead one in there, I saw
There's
that.
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was like kind of crooked. I just
Yeah.
wanted to, I think I see it on the site plan, but I just want to verify that that one very, very large tulip tree will remain.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay,
The owner, told me, don't go near it. Because, yeah.
It's very big, and
Yes, yes.
it looks very healthy.
And that in the plan is right next to where the fencing goes.
That's
so the
what I
big one.
thought, but I just wanted to verify that. And then the removal of the non-native invasives, that's only in the development envelope? That's not, because, there's a lot beyond the fence.
Yeah, so the whole area that we're going to develop is Pachysandra.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we're going to take that out, and then there's also rocks and debris that the contractors, the cleanup crew throws in there. So we're going to try to get all that gone, with the trees.
Okay.
But it really is only Pachysandra that's,
Okay, but nothing that's like beyond
No,
that?
no,
Okay,
no,
all right.
no.
And then the only other question that I have relates to the, so like on your site plan, you have some photographs, and with regard to I think it's a 6x6 timber that will be, enclosing the cedar wood chips. In the photograph, it looks like, you gave a sample of what it is, and it looks like it is rises above the ground, but in your schematic, it shows that it's more flush, and I just wondered if you could expand on that a little bit.
so the photo, the number 2, proposed
Mhm.
mulch safety zone.
Yes.
That is just because I couldn't find the exact how we're
Yeah.
going to build it.
So it's like a
photo.
stock photo, right?
Yes, it's a stock photo. So
Okay.
there's a wood edge, there's mulch in the middle, and then there's a playscape. So that's why I created number 5, the detail, which specifically says what it is, how big it is, where it is, how deep it is.
So you actually have to excavate to put in the.
The wood, yeah.
The wood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to put in, well, first limestone aggregate, and then on top of that, you put the wood,
Right,
right?
so we will go down, and I can't,
So I guess my point is it's just basically gonna be flush
6
with the
inch.
ground.
Yeah, so 6 inches down to put the wood edge in, and then we put the gravel, the mulch, and everything. So it's 6 inches down, and we expect it to be the same height as existing grade.
Great,
But you know how the existing grade is
right,
sort of
right,
like this.
but very
so-
close to.
Yes.
Yeah, very close to. Okay, those are all the questions I have, thank you.
Okay.
Almost done? No questions?
I think I'm all set, thank you, because
Thank
I
you.
think your version, the current version, is far superior to what was originally submitted, and I thank you for working with staff
Yep.
to come up with,
Thank you. Good
what I
seeing you
consider a
all.
very good solution. So, Rick, I think I direct you now to write up a resolution for next meeting, okay? Moving on, EPC 11-2026, PL 26-27, 12 Locust Hill Road, S-Pang and A-Pang, to construct a new accessory dwelling unit, hardscape walls, drainage, and other related features proximate to the wetlands, watercourses, and conservation easement areas. Property lies along the south side of Locust Hill, the access of which lies approximately 450 feet west of Delafield Island Road and is identified as map number 64, lot number 106B. The zone is R1 and it is approximately 421 acres.
So Chairman, this application was accepted on March 4th, and it was, discussion occurred at the May 6th, 2026 meeting. Important issues relative to the resource impacts, drainage, water quality, the value of the mitigations that had been proposed, and most importantly, the logistics, because it's a very, very difficult lot. And this is, again, to build an AD unit on a portion of the lot that has already been developed and had been seen by this commission several years ago. Upon the completion of testimony, the staff was directed to develop a resolution for consideration at this month's meeting.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. I have questions, make a motion to.
Any questions or comments? I'm sure you did your English.
Yeah, I just, a couple little typos that I forwarded to you both, so that was it.
Okay. You okay, sir?
No questions.
May I have a motion to?
Yes, I make a motion to approve EPC 11-2026, 12 Locust Hill Road, S-Pang and A-Pang.
Second?
All in favor? Thank you. Moving on. EPC 17-2026, PL 26-51, 350 Middlesex Road, M. Marshall and C. Marshall, to construct a residential addition, drainage, and related features proximate to wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the east side of Middlesex Road, approximately 700 feet north of Leroy Avenue, and is identified as map number 6, lot number 169A. The zone is R1, and it is approximately 1.00 acres.
Mr. Chairman, the application had received the Commission's consideration April 8th and May 6th. Important issues relating to drainage, water quality, the resource impacts, sediment and erosion control, value of the mitigations proposed, driveway drainage, and many other issues had been vetted at those meetings. Upon the completion of testimony, staff was directed to formulate a resolution for consideration at this month's meeting. And that's before you tonight.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the resolution?
Rick, can you remind me what was the update on the driveway?
The applicant has committed to add drainage and water quality to the driveway and to mitigate a potential impact with water quality, heating up of the surface waters, et cetera, to provide an adequate snow shelf. So the way it was left was they will be providing that for staff approval and for the peer reviewers' approval as a condition of an approval granted at this month's meeting.
And did we discuss demarcation along the wetland?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in effect, they are doing demarcation, and there actually is a condition of approval. The commission wanted an expansion of the planting, so they're going to revise the planting schedule to reflect it on the proposed conditions plan, and they are going to expand the planting both sides of the water course for the entire length of the water course as it passes on this property. They had done probably 60% of it. They're going to do the remaining 40%.
Okay, great, thank you.
And that's, I just wanted to clarify something about that they will be adding shrubs and or ground covers as needed to do that. In other words, they're not just like stretching out the ones that
They're adding.
They're adding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I saw the wording on your condition of approval, and I just wanted to verify that.
Anything else? Okay, you want to make a motion to?
I make a motion to approve EPC 17-2026, 350 Middlesex Road, M. Marshall and C. Marshall.
Second?
All in favor? Okay. Moving on, EPC 19-2026, PL 26-72, 301 Mansfield Avenue, R. Crane to construct residential additions, patio, pergola, and other related features proximate to wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the west side of Mansfield Avenue, approximately 475 feet south of Middlesex Road, and is identified as map number 6, lot number 147. The zone is R2 and is approximately 2.10 acres.
Mr. Chairman, this application has made its way to the agenda tonight for discussion purposes. It had been accepted last month. We developed a list of additional information based on my review and your comments that was, gained at the hearing. The application, as you had noted, is for the construction of a residential addition on the property, and as needed to attenuate impacts, there's a drainage that has been developed and has been shown on the plans. Also, accessory to the original residential addition is some patio and pergola, a patio space and a pergola as well. The property supports, if you've been there, a single-family dwelling. There's a cottage, sheds, driveway, parking, walkways, fences. There's existing drainage and other related features. The dwelling is served by sanitary and sewer and public water. The site is characterized by gently to moderately developed lands or uplands. There are wetlands on the property. There are water courses. There are several large trees, particularly to the northwest and southwest. When you go out there, you note that the property abuts the public open space of Highland Farms. Soils report has been provided, and the wetlands have been delineated and then surveyed and shown on the plan. Wetlands support vegetation ranging from manicured lawn to light to moderate woods throughout the property. The property is not in the flood hazard zone. Again, the applicant is seeking permission to construct these additions and all its attendant facilities, given it will necessitate some very, very limited tree removal, some minor regrading in the installation of drainage features. The applicant is tasked with showing that the impacts will be on regulated areas and resources that have been minimized. Issues such as drainage and water quality are evaluated, and again, looking at the mitigation that was proposed to mitigate impacts or enhance the values of the regulated areas of the property. The engineer and surveyor provided a site development plan. The additions, patio drainage, and other related features are expected to encroach no closer than 26 feet to the wetland in a space that's currently held as manicured lawn. Grading associated with the structures, of course, no less than 20 feet from those resources. De minimis changes in grade in the vicinity of 1 to plus or minus feet too, as well. Tree losses, just one small ornamental tree and some foundation plantings, so there's nothing of magnitude or great size or no individual significant trees or groups of trees are going to be affected by the improvements. The applicant reported about 4,300 square feet of the upland review area will be temporarily or permanently affected by the construction. There's no direct wetland or watercourse impacts. Project engineer has developed a drainage mitigation plan in which they evaluated existing conditions and looked at the proposed conditions and have developed a plan which mitigates the impacts by applying structured drainage, tying in roof leaders and other drainage to a Coltech system that soils information had been provided to show that it was feasible as proposed. If implemented in accordance with the plan, no impacts on drainage and adjoining properties for the study storms. The town's peer review consultant has reviewed it and has endorsed the design, both the design and the impact analysis. There had been some concern about elevations inside the dwelling and the need for sump pumps and so forth in a crawl space. The applicant reports that there will be no crawl space and no sump pumps with this de minimis increase in the size of the dwelling. Erosion control plan for water quality purposes. Junction boxes and other collection structures have been fit with deep sumps and outlet controls to assist in the collection of sediment and debris. And of course, infiltration is being used to cool and treat runoff by putting that stormwater into the ground. The mitigation planting plan has been proposed, and they have focused on one of the major water courses, not one of the major, it's a small water course that is relatively close to the property, to the proposed development. And they are proposing a collection of true native grasses, big blue stem switchgrass, and then a New England wetlands mix, creating a buffer of about 10 feet on either side of the water course. Boulder demarcation and has been added to define the more native space now that's being created, and the standard notes concerning invasives, deer repellent, and
Organic land care?
Yep, have been added to the plans.
Okay, because it's not on the plan as right now, that will be a condition?
No, it's on the plan, it's in the notes.
Okay,
There are notes that in detail on one side of the plans.
okay.
The applicant can point them out tonight if you,
Okay.
for you. And then in terms of alternatives, they've gone through their thought process on how they came up with this plan, and to more so, they looked at vertical improvements and other minimizing improvements, but they did come up with focusing on the areas that were in fact existing developed space, and coming up with measures of mitigation for the drainage, minimizing grading, minimizing tree impacts, and coming up with the planting plan as the most feasible alternative for this. We outlined our initial comments in a May 12th letter. It can serve as the basis for the review of this application, but the applicant is here this evening if you have questions or they have to have a presentation. So the thing too is it was very important in these. Part of the mitigation process is to clean up the channels. Channels are a little bit debris-filled historically, and they've committed to cleaning out the channels to make sure there's a positive flow of water in the channels.
All of them, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Good evening. My name is Brian Carey. I'm a professional wetland scientist with Landtech, who we have offices in Westport. I know you're very familiar with us. I'm here on behalf of Robert Crane and his family, who's the owner of the property. They came to us about in 2024 to map the wetlands, and they had another surveyor do the survey. So we've been kind of waiting for the architecturals to come in since we did the original wetland delineation. That being said, Rick summarized the project very, very well, as he normally does. There are wetlands on the site. A large portion of the site is regulated wetlands. There's a small house to the western portion of the property. We've gone through all our feasible and prudent alternatives. There's analysis in the record to come up with what we are doing. The zoning setback line is right along the back of the house, so that precluded us from going behind the house, which would have put us further away from the wetland. If you go to the house architecturally right now, it's screaming for a porch, so they are adding a small covered porch in that area. Again, Joe Canis reviewed our drainage report. We are picking up all of the drainage into 6 Coltex that will be underground. The only disturbance in this area will be limited disturbance during construction. It won't be any permanent disturbance. That being said, just to reiterate, there's no direct impacts to wetlands or are proposed. There's no direct impacts to any regulated water courses. There is a water course that runs across the property that's piped through 2 culverts. And there is what Rick was talking about, keeping these drainage areas free. There is a little bit of a sediment issue here, and then lesser to down point here, but we would keep those open to maintain beneficial flow. These are vegetated, both these areas, so there wasn't really a need to go back and do any planting in there. The total proposal adds about 2,100 square feet of impervious. Of that, only 750 square feet is actually building coverage, which counts to the maximum building coverage on the property. We're still way below that. I know this zoning, but it brings into the case of how small a request we're actually making. You're allowed 20% in the zone. With the new addition, we're only going to 3.8% of total building coverage. So it's a very modest request from a zoning perspective, but also I think when you go back and look at our feasible and prudent alternative analysis, you'll see that it's also a fundamentally sound request from a wetlands perspective too. Again, there's no filling of any wetlands. There's no wetland excavation occurring. There's no loss of wetland function. Everything will maintain the current functions and values for all the map wetlands on the property, which are generally stormwater renovation and flood control, even though this is in the Zone X and is not part of the FEMA floodway. One of the questions that was brought up, and it is kind of confusing, the property is on public water and sewer. So that is the field card kind of contradicts that. There's no modifications to the existing utilities coming on the property, so there's no need for us to go back into the right-of-way and add anything in that area. We kind of touched on the soil mapping. This is the biggest wetland parcel. It is seasonally mowed to keep out invasives, but it is not kept as an overall manicured lawn where you would think of specific turf grass. So they have been cognizant about that over the years. That being said, I think one of the biggest questions of the plan, and I apologize, there was multiple reiterations of this plan as we went through it. The idea is to add some buffer plantings on this part of the stream, but nothing exactly in the water course, and then buffer plantings on this part of the water course. I would like to mention this is an intermittent water course. During the peak of the summer, there is no water flowing through this, only during after storm events. So it meets the definition of intermittent water course. It's not necessarily perennial water course. We did go with it's more of a grass. The aesthetics that the applicant was looking for was more of a grass. They didn't want to grow this large area that was going to be kind of just over time disturbing the view of the house when you come in from a forested perspective. During the architectural design, we did make sure to stay out of the drip line of these larger mature oaks and maples. As Rick said, there is one dogwood that's in there, but it's not providing any beneficial use for wildlife or other than aesthetic, but it's pretty much on its last legs. I did go out there and review it. That being said, we think that the project as proposed does provide an enhancement. There's no direct impacts, there's no secondary impacts of wetlands, and the only disturbance will occur during construction. During the construction process. We did, as usual, provide all of the notes that you do like to see regarding invasive species management notes, tree protection notes, and then the deer protection notes for the project and on the plans. This is the 2-man boulder detail that we've worked out with Rick over the years. That being said, Joe Canis, we met all of his requirements. He had a few things to talk about. The groundwater elevations on the property are pretty shallow with modeling, so that's why this system is relatively shallow. And that being said, I really don't have much more to add other than we do think that this is a good project. We've spent a considerable amount of time working on it, even though it is a small residential residential addition. The property is very unique in its existing form, with the wetlands being kind of bifurcated. And both of these areas, this is actually maintained in a kind of a wooded area, and this is a grassy, kind of wet meadow. That being said, I think if you go through our alternatives analysis, very easy to see why we came up with this layout on the property.
Any questions or comments?
I have a couple.
Of course.
Currently, there's no structured drainage on the property.
Correct.
Okay, so in the sub-area 1B that you're creating for the drainage, you're adding the dwelling and the additions. Is the entire dwelling going to the Coltex?
Yes, there's only one additional area that's basically, this is our only proposed drainage area.
And I noticed in your project narrative, you explained why you cited the Coltex where you did, but I didn't quite understand why. Is it because of the trees, or is it because of the elevations?
It's the elevation of the modeling. If you go back to soils, generally, I think that's test pit 1 was most consistent. We had a restrictive layer at 76. The other ones had a restrictive layer at 62, and then test pit 3 a restrictive layer at 78, but that's further away, and then we'd had to gone through the tree line. So this would have ended up really just killing the trees over time.
No, I was just wondering, because if you'd moved it just like a little bit north, it would have been out of the upland review area, but I understand.
The problem with this is we'd be chasing the grade the other way too. So the system would have to go deeper, even though the restrictive layer, the restrictive layer is a little lower, but you'd be chasing the grade the other way.
And I like the planting plan, and I hear you that it's a intermittent water course. It does support wildlife. I did see wildlife there when I walked the property. And intermittent water courses, lead to larger water courses. So I do think it's important to try to, to improve the water quality, and the 10-foot buffer on either side is great. I really like that, and all the other notations that you made. The only other thing on the operations and maintenance plan, I think the language could be strengthened just a little bit. When you talk about the frequency of service, it should be shall or must as opposed to should, because that sort of implies that they can or they cannot, but they shall maintain it. And I don't know if that would be the appropriate place to put it, but the maintenance of the water courses going forward, that's something that should be, if it's not in with the operations and maintenance plan, perhaps with the landscaping notes that those, because there is a bit of debris in the water courses. So that's not just a one-time thing, but going forward, they should be monitored.
So I will defer to staff on that issue, just because it becomes a permitting issue. The operation and maintenance plan is in perpetuity. The cleaning of the trench, if it goes beyond the limits of the permit, it would become a permittable activity in the future. If that is something that they feel should go in the operation and maintenance plan.
I think it's relative. If you're in there taking out accumulated debris, like down limbs, and that's certainly, they have to go in there and excavate. It's a permitted activity.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about like when something there were some broken branches and things like that I saw.
If you want to make that condition of approval, we'll put that into the updated operation and maintenance plan, and that's not a problem whatsoever.
Okay, but that's all I had.
Almost set?
In the Coltex, what was the perk test for the Coltex? Are the Coltex going to fill up with groundwater?
No,
or are
we specifically designed them so they sit above the restrictive layer with the water.
Okay.
So our perk right there, we had a 1 in 10. I mean, that's pretty fast.
Okay.
Pretty much as fast as you're going to get.
Yep. Now, the other question was, as I recall, the property had a stable.
So this is a cottage here, and then there's a
cottage.
small shed here.
That was kept, there's no change or nothing?
Nothing's going on with that.
Okay. Okay. I'm all set. Unless, write it up. Yeah, Rick, you want to write a draft resolution for our approval next month?
So just for a housekeeping measure, that means it wouldn't be voted on tonight?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
One second, I want to get that. I forgot to bring that over here.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
actually,
more of a it's more of a Rick question, I
okay.
can, if you want, yeah.
Thank you.
Building permit will be like before you vote, just to get it in the hopper, and now it's gonna
I think I would wait.
you would wait. Okay. This, our contractor's got a timeline.
So, okay, moving on, approval of minutes from May 6, 2026. Everybody's got the draft of the minutes. Were there any questions or comments? No?
No.
Of course.
Yeah, okay. I just had the typos.
Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
Sure.
20 pages. Took me like 2 hours to read them.
I know, so,
Yeah.
It's because you talked about it.
What?
I'm just summarizing what you guys said. That's a lot of talking.
so anyway, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 6?
Yep, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the public hearing and regular meeting of May 6, 2026.
Second?
All in favor? Great. Next, we move on to agent approvals, EPC 20-2026, PL 26-73, 373 Middlesex Road, J. Marin and T. Marin to install a fence approximate to the wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the west side of Middlesex Road, approximately 1,100 feet south of Hanson Road, and is identified as map number 9, lot number 85. The zone is R2 and is approximately 1.16 acres.
Mr. Chairman, again, the application is to construct a fence or portions of a fence within 50 feet of wetlands. The applicant went out and flagged the wetlands on the property. They have updated their survey to show the location of the flagged wetlands. And it's just a very small portion of a fence that's proposed to contain their new dog on the property. In the draft agent approval, because we felt that it was the minimum type of project that would qualify for an agent approval, I just highlight that the site currently supports a single-family dwelling, driveway, walkways, deck, and other related features, served by both public water and a private subsurface sewage disposal system. Property is characterized by the presence of gently sloping developed lands, wooded wetlands, pretty extensive wooded wetland, watercourse, stone walls, and many large trees. Again, they had the soil scientists report accomplished for the property. The wetlands that they've been identified, the vegetation types, again, range, or basically vast majority of it is in fact wooded. There's perhaps some small area of transitional space as well that between the existing grasslands and or manicured lawn and the woodland. The wetlands generally drain east to west towards Darien High School, and they're tributary to Stony Brook. Not in the special flood hazard area. They propose to install a post and rail fence. It's supplemented by some very large open wire on the inside. It's a big dog. So they don't need to.
Just out of curiosity, Bill Wright always had the comments, is it going to be raised so the little critters,
The openings
the
are.
Bill Wright critters?
The
Bill
openings
Wright,
are,
yeah.
the openings are very large
Okay.
in this wire mesh, but
So
it's a post,
it's like a 4x4, so, okay.
and it's a post and rail fence. Purpose of the fence, provide safe containment for the dog, activities confined to upland soil areas. The fence itself, in a very small portion, will be no less than 20 feet to the flagged wetlands. That's the closest point. They're kind of drawing a limit of the enclosure aligned with an existing shed that's already on the property. No significant trees. In fact, no trees will be lost or modified as a result of this. And again, very open design, large openings in it, in the wire mesh that's on the inside. No significant site disturbance, impediments to overland flows or the movement of wildlife. It's a low fence, very open on the bottom. Encroachments into the area estimated at 65 square feet. And as far as mitigation, it was really my opinion that aside from the removal of an accumulation of yard waste in the wetlands, that really no planting was necessary in this particular instance or other mitigative measures. Again, staff felt it qualified for the agent approval process because of the de minimis impacts associated with the fence, and I drafted a resolution that has standard conditions associated with it. No votes required.
No. Anybody have a question or comment?
No.
No. Okay, good. There's no other business. Now we move on to the public hearings. EPC 12-2026, PL 26-32, 16 Arrowhead Way. D. Ebrahimi and S. Ebrahimi to fill wetlands.
It's already there. That's it. That's it.
To fill wetlands, regrade, install drainage, and construct and create alternative wetlands areas and other related features and/or approximate to wetlands and watercourses. This property lies along the west side of Arrowhead Way, approximately 350 feet north of Dogwood Lane South, and is identified as map number 64, lot number 25. The zone is R1, and it is approximately 1.00 acres. We're continuing the public hearing.
Apologize, just wanted to make sure it worked.
Sure. Okay, Rick?
So the question on this application is, again, it is, the major thrust of the application is to modify a known drainage problem that is affecting the dwelling on this property. There's a brief report that I prepared, but the most important thing is, in this public hearing scenario, as at last month's meeting, the first session of the public hearing, the determination was that a pretty significant amount of information was warranted. The biggest part of it was to evaluate alternatives. If you remember, the proposal was to fill a small pocket wetland that's at the rear of the property. There's a pocket wetland in the back that has basically lawn, that's basically manicured lawn. And then there's wetlands in the front with a small stream in the front with an area of wetland soils in the front. That area in the front kind of drains under the road and makes its way into a larger wetland across the street. So at the May 6th meeting, and again, there was design details that were warranted. The thrust of that meeting came out was, we want you to evaluate alternatives. If you recall, several of the neighbors attended and participated in that hearing. And because the project was to fill the wetland and create new wetlands along, moving it some 35 feet to the north, adjacent to that north property boundary, the area of jurisdiction would extend some number of feet onto the adjoining properties where currently there was none. And so several of the neighbors came, they provided correspondence, they expressed their opinions at the hearing, and again, encouraged the commission to request an alternative that was going to lessen the impact from an impact perspective on drainage on their properties, but more so to eliminate that further regulatory constraint that's now being thrust onto their property. So we generated correspondence that highlighted all the issues that needed to be addressed, and it included, again, the whole concept of looking at feasible and prudent alternatives to reduce or eliminate impacts on the wetlands, watercourses, and adjoining parcels. We looked for information concerning the public water and the wells and the location of the underground utilities, They're looking for the determination as to where the existing underground facilities were, as it affected perhaps the layout of the project or the existing septic system or the regulated areas. Looking for additional information on the structures that are collection structures that are being proposed to make sure they have adequate protections within them to collect debris before discharging further. Looking for greater detail on the wetland creation with all the elevations and making sure that there was adequate water stops that were not allowed to allow the areas to overdrain. Concise statement from the project engineer confirming the absence of impact on drainage soils and draining properties, and then a positive endorsement from the town's peer reviewer. That was sent out. There has been additional information that was made part of the record supplied, including our correspondence of 511. There had been a letter that was provided from one of the alternatives is to relocate the wetland to the west property boundary, the rear property boundary, essentially. Again, extending an area of jurisdiction onto an abutter's property, but a letter has been entered into the record that acknowledging that they didn't have an issue with the wetland proposal as it is currently proposed. There's been subsequent information or a subsequent letter from some of the property owners to the north acknowledging the changes that have been made. There have been a couple of plans that have been provided recently on June 1st that further define the alternatives, and more so the alternative that is most desired by the applicant. There's also further correspondence from Joe Canis. So that's what the status is. The applicant is here this evening to seek to address as many of the items that we laid out in order to, again, the primary concern is providing drainage relief for the residents, looking at the ability to minimize the impact on resources and to effectively mitigate for unavoidable impacts. Their mitigation is creating a new wetland, which they propose to have significantly greater value than what's there now. So it's a combination of hard and soft responses. Soft responses creating wetlands, creating the hydrology that is necessary to sustain a created wetland, moving soils of appropriate soils, and to plant the wetland in order to create something that what they contend is much greater value than the existing pocket. Those areas would be piped in combination, the wetland plus the hard structures, a combination of under drains, surface drains around the dwelling itself to that front wetland and subsequently under the road and beyond. So the applicant is here, make a presentation, and I'm available to answer questions and make a determination how we move forward.
Good evening, Alexandra Malk, wetland soil scientist and landscape designer. So I have a PowerPoint presentation for you tonight, and it's going to have two parts. The first part is going to be the changes which we are offering. There are going to be two plans. One is the preferred location or preferred solution, and the second one is an alternative. And they both kind of cater to what we've heard last time during the public hearing. And then also the mitigation plans. And then the second part is going through the decision process as stated in your regulations, because we just would like to highlight that we believe that we did provide you with the answers which you have to consider for the decision. But if you feel that something is missing, we'll appreciate if you point this out. So this is a drainage modification involving wetland relocation at 16 Arrowhead Way, Lorraine, Connecticut. Right? Oh, no. Oh, maybe it's not. So here's our preferred design. And last time, you may remember that our wetland area was very close. This is the northern property line. This is where
Yeah, when you touch it, the controls pop up, but because you have a white background, you can't see those little circles.
Okay. So at the last hearing, as you may remember, our wetland replacement or wetland relocation was here. This is the northern property line, and these are all two abutters. One is here, and one is here, who are here at the hearing, and they were very concerned that we're expanding the upland review area by moving the wetland on their property. So we moved the wetland farther away from the north. So now the upland review area is here, which is, Wayne, can you help me to move the screen here? So I think I have to be on this side.
You want to get up and show them?
No.
Let's see if I can.
Maybe you just touch it. There you go.
We moved that farther away, so you can see that now the upland review area is here. It's not even touching the property line. It's actually farther than from the original, the existing wetland. So with that changed this. At the same time, the property owner had a meeting with the property on 27 Winding Lane, which is to the west. This is the west, so they're here. And the owner signed a letter of consent that he does not have a problem with the proposal and with the upland review area being extended on their property. This is our preferred, again, solution, because reason being because the wetland, which is causing the flooding and which is located very close to the our property, is going to be moved farther away. And then we are proposing all those measures which will capture the drainage before it starts heading towards the house. And we're talking about the huge storm events. We're not talking every day. We're talking about all those huge storm events which cause the flooding. So we're going to have a overflow structure which is going to look like a pretty much catch basin, which is going to be elevated. It's not going to be at the level. It's going to be slightly elevated. And when the water is going to reach certain level within the proposed wetland area, it's going to start overflow to this structure, and then it's going to be moving towards the being piped and moving toward the wetland in the front. Then we have another catch basin, which is just in case structure, which
I think if you just swipe it, that'll work.
hold on, wait. Hold on.
On the left side, just touch it, right?
Okay, I will just do the, not, okay. So it's going to be smaller, but I think this works better. And then we have another catch basin here, which just in case this one is not efficient enough, we have a huge storm event, and the water now is spilling over from the wetland area. It's going to be catched here, and again, forwarded to the front wetland. Also, we have additional 2 catch basins on this side, which are going to do like almost yard drains, which are going to be capturing the water, also the same way, shooting this into the front wetland. And then we're going to have the patio, which is draining now to this old catch basin, which is within the existing wetland area. It's going to be now piped away from the old wetland, and the stormwater from the roof from this side of the house is almost also going to be piped, and all of it is going to be forwarded to the wetland in the front. In addition, we have a current drain which goes in the toe of the slope, and this one is going to be discharging to the wetland. And then we have this current drain, which is mostly safety, just in case the water will start moving towards the house. This is going to be another measure to move it away.
Which is the one if it starts moving towards the house? A curtain drain?
And Wayne DeVenzo is here from Fairfield County Engineering. If you have anything to add, please feel free to add it.
Wayne DeVanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. Yes, this is the second curtain drain that you're referring to.
How long is the curtain drain, Wayne?
I think they're each about 30, 35 feet.
I'm sorry,
30, 35 feet.
35
Both
feet.
About that.
And that second one that's closer to the house, where is that piped?
So this is everything is being
Piped to the front?
This single pipe, which then collects all the drainage, and then it goes to the front. And then at the front, we have already well-established channel, which is going to take this towards the street. We're not going to make any changes to the 12-inch pipe. So if the worst-case scenario happens, and we're going to having huge storm event, the water will not be exiting the site at higher rate than the 12-inch pipe can handle. So what's going to happen, this area actually will become a rain garden and will provide the storage, and will be flooding this area, and this pipe will keep functioning as it is functioning today. I'm afraid to do this. Right. Mitigation measure for this, for the location of the wetland. So this is the new wetland. In the middle we have blue irises. I like blue irises for the wetland areas, rain gardens, where the situation changes. We have flooded condition, and then we have dry condition during the summertime. These are really good plants which are withstanding drought and withstanding the flooding conditions. So they are uniform, really looking elegant in the landscape. So they're going to be a very good fit here. The previous plan had here Pennsylvania sage along the edge. We'll replace this with ostrich fern. Ostrich fern was a little bit taller, and I'm not sure even whether or not we need the demarcation feature, because ostrich fern is like 3 feet tall, and I don't think anybody will confuse this with the lawn and start mowing it. It's just too tall. Vice versa, the Pennsylvania sage was low-growing grass, so it could be like encroach upon. But we're offering the demarcation anyway. And then along the edges, we have shrubs, and we have 5 trees. We have river birches, and then we have redbud at each end. So here's our mitigation. The alternative to this is, we've heard at the last hearing that maybe you can make some changes to the wetland, maybe you don't have to relocate the wetland. So we did consider this. The only problem with that is that there is a catch basin in this wetland, as you remember. But in order for this catch basin to work, we have to modify it. So as you remember, the current catch basin actually is here. It's collecting the rainwater or stormwater from the patio and also this side of the roof. And those pipes are coming into the catch basin. The catch basin is very small, and then they are flooding the wetland. So in order to take the pipe out and pipe this catch basin to the wetland in the front, we will have to change the elevation. And also we'll have to install a little bit larger catch basin because the one which is there is not really functioning well. So in order to raise it and maintain a proper pitch to the front wetland, we will have to, the yellow area shows fill into the wetland. So this is the wetland boundary in the blue, and then the yellow area shows that we'll have to fill this area to raise the catch basin and also facilitate the pitch of the pipe, so it's going to be meeting and flowing by gravity into the front wetland. And the other items are pretty much the same. So we have the curtain drain here, we have the yard drains all connected, and also we have another curtain drain coming through the wetland, and then everything, again, the same way, is being sent to the front wetland. Go on. Don't move. With this design, as we were listening to your comments, can someone help here? I don't know what to do. It's just like really.
This is not my territory. I just assumed you swept on it.
Yes. No.
Just reduced it. That's okay.
I'm not
All right.
even, I don't even run this anymore now. This
If
is
you
like
go to the,
5 years ago
okay,
for me.
go back to your PowerPoint presentation tab. Yep, open that. Then the bottom right, there's a scale. There's a slide bars for scale.
There you go.
Change the
Yeah,
scale.
but I don't, did,
Thank you.
oh,
Okay.
that's how they get
So
back.
maybe we
There
can
you
just,
go.
hold on. Hopefully it will work.
No.
So then we were listening to a particular one of the commission members who said, how about we'll modify the existing wetland, and then maybe we can plant the slope so the new trees and shrubs can do some more absorption of the stormwater and also help and work together. So we are offering 12 trees, and we have 20 shrubs along the top of the slope as a mitigation if the alternative, which means that we're going to be partially filling the wetland and installing the drainage, is the alternative the commission chose as the preferred one. In addition, we're still offering the mitigation plan, which is for the front wetland, because we understand that now we're going to be making this wetland more active, and the channel is going to be receiving a little bit more of the runoff. So we have this cover with mostly herbaceous ground cover, but also some shrubs, there's some existing trees. So this wetland also is going to be receiving mitigation, and we're going to be increasing the plant diversity in this area. Now I would like to talk about the criteria for a decision. And the first one, which needs to be considered, is the environmental impact of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands and watercourses. So this is going to be kind of divided, because if we're going to go with, if we will be allowed to do what we prefer to do, means that relocate the wetland, then we're going to have short-term impacts, because what we're going to do, we're going to be removing all the topsoil from the existing wetland and store it and preserve it, and then we're going to be excavating the new one, and then we're going to be top dressing with the existing soil. So this way we're going to introduce to the new wetland 4 elements, means functional soil, so there's going to be organic topsoil typical to the wetland area, which is very important for the microbial content and also soil organisms to function. Then, because we're going to be excavating to reach the groundwater, so then we're going to also provide immediately hydrology of the wetland, and then, which we can do in 1-2 days, this whole project, and then we're going to be doing planting. So in a couple of days, we're going to have functional and restored wetland area. So this is going to be pretty fast process, and then the old wetland is going to be graded and removed from being a wetland. And as you can see, I did provide the comparison before and after. So this is the new wetland and this is the old wetland, and how the wetland functions and values are going to change. And we'll have several improvements for the new wetland. We're going to have now vegetated cover, so the wetland will be able to capture, will be able to provide a filtration mechanism, absorb water, vice versa today's wetland. And I would like to actually show a picture of it. So this is how today's wetland looks like. It's even not noticeably seen as a depression when you walk the landscape. Here's the catch basin, and basically the entire area is along. Because the wetland is so close to the exit from the house, we're talking about 10 feet, you can't really improve it because there's a lot of traffic. Whenever you would like to go to any of the area of the backyard, you have to cross the wetland. And basically, so compaction, foot traffic, disturbance of all kinds. So you can't really ever have any wildlife habitat built here. You probably wouldn't be able to plant anything else than the lawn because there's going to be just the traffic, foot traffic is going to be destroying it. So the potential for this wetland ever to be improved is very minimal, it's very challenging. So therefore, the new wetland, we're going to have new vegetation, we're going to stratify the vegetation, we're going to have trees, shrubs, and herbaceous ground cover. We're going to have the original soil of the wetland, so this is going to be functioning. Again, the hydrology, and it's going to provide wetland habitat. You can see on the slope that this area is wooded. Actually, the wetland is going to kind of start here, but more being here, so that there are more trees here. So we're going to be tying this to the existing habitat, which is the slope, vice versa. This one is isolated. There is no connection to what's going on around. So it's going to be a good benefit. Also, the new one is going to have a little bit more of a storage capacity because the overflow is going to be set at elevation, so there'll be more opportunity to hold the water and also more opportunity to transform the nutrients and pollutants. And the most important, it's not going to be alone. So if you think about this wetland, it's just like the regular maintenance, the fertilizer, the other lawn care, which are pesticides, herbicides, etc. This is actually source of pollution to the wetland and the groundwater. We're going to eliminate the source of pollution because the new wetland, there will be no need for fertilizing because native plants do not need fertilization. And also because we're going to have the soil from the old wetland, it's going to be already full of organics and nutrients. Another criteria is the applicant's purpose for and feasible and prudent alternative. And this is actually important because I would like to talk to you about the alternative, and maybe we didn't have enough time to talk about it last time and present it. I did count it that these came up with 4 different alternatives. So the first one, the very first one was, how about we will create in-ground infiltration system. We're going to store excess water, so when the storm hits, we can have some capacity underground and we can just hold it and release it slowly to the groundwater. So what we did a lot of testing. I mean, not a lot because really, quite frankly, there's no really place for testing. We did 3 test holes, mostly on this side of the driveway and this side of the driveway. Why only here? Because this is slope and we can pump storm water up the slope, and actually will be counterproductive because it will come back, so it will be like a closed circle. Then in here we have a wetland, so obviously not so conducive to any of the infiltration. Another wetland in the front, and here the whole front yard is either septic or little dry well, so really not space for any stormwater detention.
Real quick, you're going so fast, it's kind of hard to keep up. With the test pits,
Yes.
Wayne, did those perk?
So
No,
what,
no, not
No, they
terrible.
don't
They were-
work.
They were terrible.
Okay, so just procedurally, here's a question. Can soils that don't perk be an alternative?
no, because then you don't have the infiltration, so you have.
No, I understand. You
Oh.
represented prudent and feasible alternatives. If I have a site that doesn't perk to have
Right, okay, I
retention,
got your point.
how is that even an alternative?
So you have to actually prove that there is no prudent and feasible. So maybe the other way around, maybe I didn't say this right, because this shouldn't be an alternative. This should be actually showing that this alternative does not exist. We put this on the table, we wanted to do it, we tested, and we came back saying it's not working. So the other four also are not going to work. So, but we have to show it to you.
No, but
to
I'm
make
asking a
sure.
procedural question. Rick and Wayne, maybe you can answer this. If I have a site, which I think is character of this site, I have a site that has a very high water table. It's has a bathtub effect. It doesn't drain, the soils don't drain. What would be the alternative?
So that's
Something
why
where you would be
we have
raising
to-
the grade to, like if I
Yeah,
was building
yeah.
the septic system, you would say,
Yeah.
I'm gonna fill so I can have a septic system.
Right, I
That
mean,
would
if-
be the alternative,
If you
correct?
can't do retention, then you're looking at either regrading or doing something to convey the water out of there, which to do that, you probably would have to regrade.
Okay.
So that would be the general.
And then partially that's where we went that way, because it's like if we cannot go under the soil, underneath the soil, we can't do in ground, maybe we can do something above the ground. And the other,
So that was an alternative that you evaluated?
so the testing did not work. So,
I'm sorry, I just want to be clear. You said there was an alternative that you evaluated where you were filling?
no,
Above grade?
we're just talking about the testing. So we did the testing, it didn't work for the in-ground infiltration system. So we concluded this is not a valid, prudent, and feasible alternative.
That was our first choice. That was what we tried to do first before anything else, and it failed, so.
Another alternative, and this one you never seen because this actually design never went to any of the hearings because we ran out of time and we had to withdraw the application. But this was actually the original location of the proposed new wetland. And this was close to this is the driveway, this is the house. And so next to the driveway, again, this wetland was very close to the northern property line. And at that time, we didn't even know that the neighbors may actually be against that. We just were trying to find the best location for the wetland. So this one you will never see it, but also wouldn't work because it will push the upland review area again on those two properties in the north.
Two points of clarification. Did you withdraw the application?
No, we withdrew the application.
Last
because
time,
we ran
it was
out of
before
Was
about
it
a
like
couple
a year
years
All
ago.
right, right, okay. And didn't you discuss at the meeting putting the wetland on the northern property boundary?
No, then actually the one which you've seen last time is this one, as you remember.
Just a
So
different shape?
It's a little bit different shape, farther from the driveway, a little bit closer to the toe of the slope. So it was a little bit reshaped, but generally in almost, not the same area, but generally along the northern property line.
That was their preferred alternative.
I'm trying to keep it
Yeah.
this linear.
No, I'm getting confused too. I believe that was their first alternative, and I believe the neighbors came up and spoke against that, and I think there was consensus on here that was a burden they were putting on the neighbors that the neighbors weren't willing to accept.
So far from those alternatives which I show you, they are not prudent and feasible. And then,
Is there a clicker up there?
can I actually do this maybe?
Is that the mouse? The clicker is next to the keyboard?
Yeah.
This one?
Hmm.
That's the
Yeah, I don't think
camera.
That's gonna
that's it.
turn,
That one's
that's
for the
gonna turn
camera.
it on.
It's
Just on.
in markup mode.
The technical term of the clicker, but.
Lane's got
Okay,
it.
okay, go lower, we'll cover this lower. Okay, stay here. Then we're supposed to be looking at the relationship between short and long term. And I kind of touched upon this already, that short term, yes, disturbance, but it's going to be controlled and it's going to be very short. And then we're going to be talking about long term, which are not going to be impacts, but are going to be benefits. And this is discussing the new wetland, the relocation. So we're going to have new wildlife habitat, improved stormwater filtration and absorption, no need for using fertilizers or lawn care, increased plant diversity, and less human disturbance and interference. Now, irreversible and irretrievable losses. So the first one, prevent or minimize pollution or other environmental damage. So in terms of pollution, the process is not going to really create any pollution because we're going to be filling one wetland, so it's not going to be polluted anymore, there's going to be no impact, and then we're going to be creating the new one, and the new one is going to be restored, and as soon as it's restored, there will be no source of pollution or environmental damage. So we're actually restoring, and this means not really damaging. And enhance existing environmental quality. Yes, the new wetland is going to be definitely enhancing the environmental quality of the area. And then restore. We can restore the old wetland. I showed you the condition, the location of it, the lawn cover. There's no way, there's no room for restoration or enhancement. But we are creating a productive wetland by relocating somewhere else. And then it is going to be beneficial. The character and degree of injury to or interference with safety, health, or the reasonable use of property which is caused or threatened by the proposed regulated activity. Actually, the activity is to preserve or to create safety and a healthy environment for the habitants in this house, so they're not going to be flooded, they can feel safe, and they can actually protect their real estate, and there will be no threats or any impact to any adjacent properties or neighbors. And the last one?
Does that regulation relate to the land or the structure on the land when the reg reads to property?
I think you can interpret this the way you would like to, and I don't know, because each project is different, and I think this mostly apply for activities which create something. The wetlands relocation, I think, is a very unique activity which may never be kind of looked at when they created the regs.
I think the Connecticut statute clearly reads it relates to the land.
In terms of the health and safety?
The structure is germane.
Well, again, flooding of the land or the structure
No,
still
It's the
may
land.
the land.
be hazardous.
There's,
To the land, erosion, etc. Flooding it's a hazard. Whether
okay.
to the land or
I think I understand the regulation, thank you.
And then the health, I guess, is, you think that this is the health of the land or health of the inhabitants. So now, the last one is examining whether or not there's going to be an impact to any other wetlands, adjacent wetlands or off-site wetlands. And I did explain this at the very beginning, that because we're not changing the size of the pipe, and because the discharge from the upper wetland is going to be going to already defined and well-protected channel, which is not erosive because it has gravel protection, it has protected beds, and also it's kind of lined with stone on both sides. So it is kind of very well equipped to receive more flow. Therefore, we're not going, and then also, I kind of still remember what one of the neighbors said, that this used to be a river and somebody built a house. And this is actually true, because this whole slope eventually drains to the lower wetland. The middle wetland, the upper wetland is just like the little stopover, and then eventually it gets all to the lower wetland. They're all connected, now kind of disconnected because of the house, but still, you know, the drainage goes around and up in this lower wetland. So we're not really creating a new drainage pattern, we're not really changing anything. We're kind of protecting the house and rerouting the drainage from the backyard. And this is the last of my slides, and I'm here to answer your questions. Thank you for listening.
Just want to be, I think, first of all, I'm going to say, Wayne submitted documents very early this morning today, which I have not given a thorough review, so I don't know how that impacts the hearing, whether we
Well,
continue
it
discussion.
specifically does, because neither have I reviewed them, and more critically, neither has the peer reviewer. Okay, Joe Connors, I don't know if he received them or has had a chance to, and we haven't had his reaction to these documents.
So I don't know whether me opining on the application, on the presentation now, I'd like to read what Joe has to say. I mean, I do have some questions I could ask. One is, I just want to be clear, Rick, is the application stating that the existing wetland is going to be excavated and filled where it will potentially no longer be a wetland in the future?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so first of all, I'd say having testimony from the neighbors, having knowledge of the site and the area, and a general concern and a very well-documented case in Woodbury, Connecticut some time ago, is a wetland was, I don't think remediated is the word, it was previously a wetland. It was excavated out, and soils were put in to no longer make it a wetland, and the hydrology of the site made it a wetland again. So, and I think there's also a point in time is, when does a soil scientist come back to that former wetland site and determine, okay, that excavation worked, it's no longer a wetland? Is that a year from the time that that old wetland was potentially excavated and filled? Is it 2 or 3 years? Like, I am skeptical that excavating that area out and filling it would prevent that from being a wetland. The site as a whole, per testimony and common knowledge of that site, is it floods. It floods to the rear of the house and it runs to the front of the house. It's shaped like a bowl or sheet flow. It just wants to be wet. So my concern is that this is we could try this. The applicant could potentially try this and see if it works. But what happens when it doesn't work? When is that?
Can I answer the question?
Just so a scientist.
When is it a wetland?
I think a lot of it has to depend on the amount of fill you put over the wetland and how you alter the wetland. If it's a mineral soil or an organic soil. So I'll let the soil scientist answer that in terms of when is wetland not a wetland.
And then here's the part B, is, because this is important for the commission to understand, is the new wetland isn't materially far from the existing wetland. So if I take one body of water and move it a very short distance from the existing, how is that body of water not going to want to continue to be a wetland?
Not going to? It's going to want to.
It's going to want, well.
Can I answer the question?
Yeah, sure.
The way the soil scientist is using the disturbed areas and filled areas criteria is that in general, if you have 12 inches, 2 feet of 24 inches, 2 feet of fill, the wetland is not a wetland anymore. However, there are aquants, but this means that you put a fill, just the scenario you are presenting, you put a fill, but the area is still wet. But wetlands are not being created in a year. This is like prolonged saturation, and over time, it all depends. Some sites, because they are wetter, the fill will start developing the wetland soil characteristic, because this is all about hydrology, and will start changing. And some areas which maybe it's not as wet as the others may take longer. But over several years, we may actually start seeing the changes, and you can detect this. You can see that this is fill, which basically is telling you it's still wet, and even though it's a fill. So I've seen this many times.
I'm sorry, so you're saying you fill it, but then it's still, you test the soil, and the soil testing still represents that it's a wetland?
So this will take a while. If we do the filling, let's say today, you're not going to see it tomorrow. You're probably not going to see it in 5 years, but like between 5 and 10, if the soil is saturated for a prolonged period of time during the wet season, you will start, because basically how the wetlands being formed is like every grain of soil is coated with iron. And if you have a dry situation and the pores are filled with air, the iron stays, and that's why you have this bright brown soil. Now in the wetland condition, you are saturated, so the pores are filled with water. There is no oxygen, only when the water fluctuates. So the iron is being removed and stripped from the grains, and then the soil becomes its normal color, which is actually gray, because grain of soils are gray. If you go to the beach, you look at the sand is not brown, it's gray usually, right? So when you start stripping the iron, and this depends how long it's saturated, and then the fluctuation, so we have dry, it's summertime, the water drops, the iron starts precipitating, but usually it doesn't precipitate on the grains, but in the soil. And that's how you see the redoxymorphic features. They are basically iron concentrations. And when you have those fluctuations up and down, wet, dry, you have like pretty kind of quick development. I mean, not quick, it takes years. If the soil is just saturated sometimes, the process will start, but it will be moving very slowly, and you have to wait a long time. So also when you go to the wetland and you take a soil sample and you see that the soil is like totally gray, you know that this area is wet.
My example is that if I'm the homeowner, I'm thinking in the lens of the homeowner. Your proposal is I'm going to excavate out a wetland, right? And I'm going to make it non-wetland. And I think I heard you is in the next 5 years, it'll read like a normal
5 to 10, she said.
5 to 10 years. And
Right,
then it'll
and
slowly,
again, it all depends.
matriculate back to being a wetland soil.
Maybe
Because-
not. Maybe not.
But
because-
I'm just repeating what you said, because the area is used to getting saturated and drying out,
Right.
saturated and drying out.
But now you're adding 24 inches, let's say, because in order to eliminate wetland, you need 24 inches. So you're adding 24 inches, and your groundwater may not fluctuate, because you
Right,
need
so
the
you're gonna
groundwater
put
within 12
structural
inches
fill in there
to-
so you can recede, okay.
And then you have capillary fringe, so the wetland soil has more fine-grained material, so you have higher capillary fringe. When you put sand, the water usually doesn't rise that far in a profile. So it all depends. It's not like, I can't really tell you whether or not it's going to be a wetland and when it's going to be a wetland. It all depends.
So if I can interject, what I'm hearing here is that you want to fill the wetlands, create a new wetland, and after 5 to 10 years, it could go back to being wetlands again. So now you're going to have a larger wetland area, right? would it all be one?
That's not the goal, but I think.
I know it's not the goal, but it could happen.
It could happen, but I guess the goal here is to deal with the drainage, because this is the necessity, and that's why we're here. And we will worry about the wetlands later, because that's not the main goal of this. But it may happen, but then again, if you put sandy soil, the water may not be rising, because you have to have this fluctuation in 12 inches. Because wetland, the wet condition has to be within the first 12 inches. And if you add 2 feet, I don't know whether or not the water is going to go through that high. Most likely not. And this is also a slope, so now it's going to be moving. If you have stagnant situation, you have a pond, and you fill it, then most likely everything is going to be draining there anyway, and the water is going to be rising. But this is like, it has a pitch, so you never know what's going to happen.
Wayne, what's the distance of the closest edge of the existing wetland to the stem wall of the house? We
To
talked
the
about
house,
this.
it's 10 or 12 feet, I think.
Okay, so let's go with 12 feet. And then what's the distance of the closest edge to the new closest edge? Oh, the existing wetland to the new wetland?
Yeah, okay. She's going to measure, but
Approximately.
Just to-
I'm not going to hold you to it.
just to go to your premise, I mean, if the wetland that is removed becomes wetlands later, that would just be a win-win. I mean, our goal is not to eliminate the wetland, our goal is to improve the drainage.
No, I understand.
So that would be.
I
So
would say
what's
your
the-
goal is to protect the house, because that's what the homeowner
To
said
improve the
before.
yeah, right,
Is
yeah.
to protect the house. How we do it is what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Okay, but is when it really rains, okay?
55 feet.
It surface floods towards the house, and that's what we're trying to, and that's what your proposals were trying to stop.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying, yeah. It's, the goal is to do that. An unfortunate byproduct of that is that we're eliminating a wetland. Not what we would choose to do, but, in your scenario, that would be great if it came back and was a larger wetland. I don't think the homeowner would have a problem with that necessarily, as long as the drainage was in place.
And also the fill is going to create a sponge effect, because now you have porous sediment which you pour over, and now you have more capacity to absorb.
What's the bottom elevation of the existing wetland? What's the bottom elevation of the proposed wetland?
The existing is, I believe, probably 30.0, and the proposed is 31.5.
So it's higher.
And what's the elevation of the grade at the stem wall? Yeah, because it's going up
the
the
wall
hill.
in the rear.
The
You mean like the
30.2.
backside of the proposed wetland? I believe it's about 34, between,
So the
between
stem
32.
wall of the house is at 34. The stem wall of the house is at 34.
The house the house is like 30 points.
Our chairman says 30.2.
But
Yeah, that's about right, yeah. Maybe a little higher, it varies a little bit.
So once the existing, if the proposed activity is to fill the existing wetland, then the top of that wetland would be equal to the height of the grade at the stem wall.
Approximately, yeah,
So it's flat.
fairly flat, yeah.
And
Well,
then the
relative to each other, but yeah.
and then the depression as the grade creeps very subtly, because that's pretty much a big level flat backyard. The depression of that wetland is 12 inches below the
Approximately.
top of elevation of the grade at
Yeah, about
the
that.
stem wall.
Yeah.
And the distance from and Wayne, I haven't been to the site, but what's the distance from the bottom course of the shingle on the house, the siding on the house to the grade? Is it like 8 inches? Is it just a very small amount of stem wall?
I'm not sure,
Probably about 8 inches.
yeah, it's not, yeah.
So don't put too much mulch up against the house, or it's gonna be,
Bushes are far away.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that you can open the door.
My other consideration is, I read on this is, applicants have come to boards prior and have said, okay, I discussed with my neighbor, I want to adversely impact their property, and my neighbor's okay with it. Commissions, that's not an affirmation of a reason to approve an application, is because that neighbor could be ignorant to the damages that said activity could cause them or a neighbor down the road. In this particular application, there's a considerable amount of elevation where the proposed wetland would be located. However, there's all sorts of asymmetric concerns that a future property owner might have because the upland review area has moved. And that property might not have been as impacted by a URA and now is.
You're talking about winding lane.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether town council opines on that or not, but
How far
I'll wait
onto
to
the
hear if
property
that
does-
neighbor is here
20, right?
and
The
speaks this
up to
evening.
20. But this is not part of the consideration and how this is a wetland, physical wetland impact.
Yeah,
And
but
we
it
do
affects the
have
neighbor. It affects the neighbor.
And we do have a letter stating that the neighbor doesn't have an issue with it, so.
No, I get that.
Has to be more
Because the other neighbors on the other side have made very clear.
Well, that's
Oh,
why
have-
we moved the wetland and. it
No,
doesn't
I
affect
understand you,
them.
I understand you moved it. And, because they understand that the upland review area would be moved onto their property, and hey, if I was in their position, I'd object to it.
And then the part B to that is why we keep going back to, which is, this is not a new concept, and it's been litigated quite a bit in the state of Connecticut, is, I think you made the example of, okay, the proposed wetland gets filled and turns back to a wetland, and then you created a new wetland, and the wetland gets bigger. The wetland, is there an order of magnitude to that wetland, and then that wetland causes more damage to the applicant, and then ergo the neighbors. So these are the reasons for the questions that I had. I have no
Isn't
further
this like
questions.
addressed by the certified professional who is our engineer, who certifies that the system is going to work and is designed properly? And I don't think the commission is taking responsibility for whether or not the system is going to work. The commission is supposed to be evaluating impacts, physical impacts to the wetland, not really neighbors' impacts, or this is not a planning and zoning where you make encroachments or.
I think, well, I want to correct you, is don't put words in my mouth. I'm speaking to you about the functioning hydrology of the site. That's what we've been speaking about.
That's what we're trying to correct, and actually the drainage structures which are being in place are going to make sure that the hydrology is going to be maintained and controlled and prevent the flooding. Now, in terms of whether or not the wetland is going to be created, I think it's very unlikely, again, because we have a slope. It's not a stagnant, it's not a depression where everything is going to be draining, and adding the grading to the area where the wetland is going to be diverting some of this flow away and towards the new wetland. So I think the project was engineered and was certified by a professional engineer. So I don't know how far we can go with questions.
Yeah,
Well, if what you're
Therefore,
saying is like,
when?
you're trying to make an argument, I think we're asking legitimate questions, and I'd like my other commissioners to have questions and comments, is you're making an argument, I think it's the wrong path to go down, is you're trying to make an argument of the power of the stamp here. So I am listening 100% to everything that you're saying, but we as commissioners get to ask questions and be thoughtful for both the applicant and the abutters. I have no further comments.
And let me just say that as far as the drainage goes, I mean, it doesn't make a difference whether the surrounding soils are wetlands or not. It's going to function the same. If it should revert back to wetlands, you'd have those structures it would be then in a wetland, but they would still function the way they're designed to function. you know, assuming it was removed. So I just don't see that being, you know, an issue.
And
As
again,
far as-
this is not a proposal where we're trying to build a house and make profit out of it. We're just trying to protect what's existing. And again, I think the property owners deserve to be safe in their own home and have a healthy home environment. And this is, and we've gone through so many different options. Unfortunately, the site is very challenging, and we are running out of options, and I don't know what else we can put on the table to address all the issues, because there are always issues, and I don't think we can make everybody happy. I think we just have to find out what's the best for wetlands, and just pick the best solution, the best alternative.
And just one more thought. When a town increases their setback for an upland review area, they are creating upland review areas on adjoining properties or increasing upland review areas on adjoining properties. So it's not unprecedented, and it's not unheard of. And keep in mind, again, the underlying reason for all this is, you know, is to mitigate a flooding situation. So, you know, I know, for example, Norwalk and Stamford increased their setbacks in the last 18 months or so. That certainly created upland review areas on properties that didn't have them before, and increased ones that did.
But that was the town, or the city in this case,
Yeah. it was-
making a decision
Sure,
by elected officials, et cetera.
sure.
This wasn't one property owner shifting a burden onto another,
Yeah.
which is a different story.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
which is
larger magnitude.
which is a different, that's a different story. And so,
And again, about
so, you know,
the
there's where I
underlying
disagree with
reason
you,
for it.
okay? So,
Yeah.
you know,
Nevertheless, it's,
no, I
I
understand. And in 1972, when the state of Connecticut came up with the inland wetlands and watercourse things, very clearly, there were a lot of people that all of a sudden, there were an immense number of properties in the state of Connecticut that were affected. And guess what? They were affected, okay? And if they didn't like it, you can vote out your representatives, okay? But they didn't, and it survived for the last 50 years. So, you know, the consideration for the neighbors is something that is, Trevor, did you want to?
I have nothing more to add.
I have a question. You stated that, what's the capacity of this wetland that's
The new
being
one?
developed?
the new one.
Of the new one? Is this going to be able to handle a catastrophic?
Well, no, it's not, it doesn't have retention value. It's not going to handle, you know, a significant amount of runoff. It's not, if it was able to do that, we wouldn't have to do the rest of this stuff. Or if we were able to create something like that, you know, aside from the wetland, we wouldn't have to
Okay,
do
so what's going to
this.
happen to the water when we have, you know,
Well,
a
yeah,
100-year
it's-
storm? A 100-year storm?
Well, it's designed for 50 years. Yeah.
Is the applicant going to have the same issues? Because the water flow from the new wetland that's created in the back, going to overflow and flow towards his house?
Well, no, it's going to have a drain on it that will pipe it to the front, and then that's why there's these series of you know, safeguards between it and the house to collect more 4-yard drains, 2 trench drains, and then 2 more drains right by the house. It's you know, defense in line, so to speak. It's you know, and again, it's designed for a 50-year storm. You know, there's no guarantee you're never going to see water in there, but it's certainly going to improve the situation.
No, I understand it's going to improve, but, you know, from what I understand, you know, when you design a house, it's a 50-year storm. Okay. And I guess you're certifying that this will satisfy them for a 50-year storm.
No, I'm saying it's the best we can do. It will help improve the situation, you know, hopefully substantially. You know, I can't say they're never going to see a drop of water in their basement or in their
Well,
the garage,
they,
but-
as I recall, they talked about sheeting against the house. At one point,
That's
during,
currently
during
what it
during
does, yeah,
testimony, there was
yeah.
sheeting against the house during.
Right, yeah, this currently, that's what happens. This will, hopefully eliminate that. And they're getting that with, I think, much less than a 50-year storm. I'm sure they're getting that with 3 and 4 inches of rain, which is more like a 2-year storm, 2 and a 5-year storm.
Carolyn?
So, I just would like to ask again, how far onto the Winding Lane property does the upland review area?
It's about 27 feet, I'm sorry.
27 feet, okay, because I mean, I agree with Commissioner Irvin that I feel like I would like documentation. I read the letter, they said that they're okay with the project, but I just think, for our comfort level, we would like to know that they understand that the upland review area is being extended onto their property. It should explicitly state that. The other thing is the pipe that everything is going into, the patio and the channel drains. What size is that? The pipe that's going to the front of the house?
Oh, it's a 12-inch pipe.
Not the
12-inch.
one that goes under the road, the pipe.
Yeah, no, that pipe's a 12-inch pipe. Yeah,
The
one
pipe
that
from
goes,
the.
Driveway.
goes
No,
under the driveway, correct? It goes-
no, that's not the pipe I'm asking
I'm
about.
sorry.
So the pipe from the relocated wetland that is going to the side and then to the front of the house, what size pipe is that?
They're different sizes, but most of them are 6-inch pipes.
6-inch pipes?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
it collects ultimately into a 12-inch pipe, which goes down the driveway. And,
Right,
yeah.
right, no, I understand that. One of the alternatives that you mentioned where you modify the catch basin, you said you have to raise the elevation of the you keep the wetland where it is, but you raise the elevation of it. By how much would you have to raise that wetland?
It's about 18 inches, I think.
You would have to raise it 18 inches? So that's the one where you're keeping the wetland in place, but you're raising it so that it can have the pitch to go around and down to the front of the house.
Right, yeah. Really, the grade change, the grading is the same for both scenarios.
And
really,
would you
basically.
be adding wetland soils to raise that, or would you be adding topsoil?
We can actually remove the topsoil before we raise the area and then put the topsoil on the top, so the topsoil will stay on the top.
So meaning the wetland soil?
Yeah.
Okay, so in other words, you would be lifting it, you would be scraping it out, putting topsoil in there, and then putting the wetland soil back on top. Okay, all right. So 18 inches. That's all that I have right now. I'll have more questions, but.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still thinking. I don't have all my questions formulated.
To just go off of what Carolyn was saying, if you take that soil off, put topsoil in, you're keeping the wetlands exactly where it is. But better
Yes,
drainage.
except that it's going to have the fill.
Right, but you're keeping it where it is and no new wetlands.
But we're talking about the topsoil, we're not going to be going any deeper, we're just going to scrape the topsoil, redress it after the fill is placed, yes.
But you're not creating another new wetlands, you're just
But
keeping what's
that's the
there.
alternative, yes. And in this alternative, we're not creating, we're just modifying the existing.
What's there.
plan. Yes.
Okay.
Wayne, how materially different is this base case? So this alternative is, I keep the wetland where it is, I need to burn the soil up so that it performs. You're losing some of the drainage, correct? Like your pipe, you can't.
No, it's essentially.
Or is it essentially the same?
It's largely the same.
So if it was me, I would say, hey, I want to push it up against the slope because it's farther away from my house and it's more aesthetically pleasing. But this accomplishes the same goal.
Not quite as well, but.
80-20 rule?
I'm sorry?
80% correct?
Yeah, maybe 70, 80%, maybe, yeah.
And you're taking the structure out, right, the dry well?
The existing, it's not a dry well, it's just a.
Catch basin.
it's really
That's
nothing.
coming out in this?
That would come out in either
alternative?
scenario.
So I would walk out my patio door, up against the stem wall of the house, I would walk out my patio door, and I would start to look at, I have 8 inches from the course of shingle on my home to the grade. I will walk 12 feet out, and then the grade would pick up 18 inches.
That's about right, yeah.
And then when you berm that grade up, you're berming it across the whole backyard, because it's not just
Yeah,
gonna look like a
It gets
whole.
feathered out, but yeah.
And you're gonna feather it 55 feet out to the,
Back
to
to the rear.
the, is it gonna look like a
side.
septic, would it look like a septic field?
Yeah, it could look somewhat like a raised septic field, I suppose, yeah.
But you're gonna try, but then you're gonna try and taper it out, so it doesn't look like.
We'd have to, yeah,
You've
feather
got
it
a
on the
septic
sides
field
and,
there.
and on the sides primarily.
Has that been presented to the is that in the, is that in your latest, that shows the change in the topography once you lift it up 18 inches around the existing wetland?
Yeah, there are contour lines here showing it.
And do those contour lines where they abut the toe of the hill, do those change?
No, actually, in the case of leaving the wetland the way it is and not creating a new wetland, we're not going to go all the way to the toe of the slope, no.
And do you have a planting plan as to how that wetland would look like if you were to keep that base, that alternative?
So then the planting plan which we are proposing is to plant along the like toe of the slope, not really within the wetland or close to the wetland, but to go to the toe of the slope, which is this planting. So this is the wetland, right?
No, I understand. Okay,
And
so
then
I
we're planting farther away.
totally get it. So why would you, okay, I'm gonna move the wetland, the proposed wetland, I'm gonna move it 55 feet plus or minus away from the house or the existing location,
Right.
and I'm gonna plant a buffer around that, but if I change the grade and keep the wetland where it currently is, I'm only gonna do planting on the toe of the hill. Why would you not do planting around the existing wetland?
Because the planting will be like in the middle of the yard. And
So it's only, it has no
it's like the middle of the yard. And I don't know
environmental
how this
benefit?
will survive. I mean, it will, but again, this will be an island within the lawn area. And then, because, as I said, the back door is here. So basically, when you exiting the house in the back, and you would like to go this way, or this way, or this way, you have to go across the wetland.
No, I understand.
So
You're
if you run this
describing,
area,
you're
then-
describing an aesthetic. My question is, I'm trying to be as linear and as quick as possible. Is the proposed has a very robust wetland planting plan around it, 55 feet plus or minus from the house. If you kept the existing condition, you're not putting a planting plan around that wetland
That's correct.
because of aesthetic purpose.
I think it's more functionality than aesthetics.
Because she's saying because you'd be walking into it every time you left the house and wanted to utilize the backyard.
You have to walk around
So
it.
You'd have to walk around it. Yeah.
But then this is like because the yard is just this low-lying area. The wetlands kind of in the central portion of it right now. And if you plant around the wetland, then basically your yard is just like a pathway around the middle because this area is going to be planted. So it's just like, I don't know what the property owners will say about it, but long term, I don't see those plants being kept there. And I've seen many times when monitoring the sites that if you force plants in the area, which is kind of in the middle of something, those plants sooner or later are going to be either mowed or cut or removed or die. So
you're saying they get mowed over or trampled?
Not if they have big boulders around them.
Well, that's what they get, and there's that's why we
Or
have
maybe
demarcation.
those property owners will maintain them because they will understand that that was the mitigation. But the next property owner, I don't see them understanding why the middle of the yard.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there is an alternative. The alternative would be, I understand moving, I understand the option, one of the options is to move the wetland into the toe of the hill. We get it. The other option is to modify the existing wetland where it is. And what can go along with that is a planting plan around that existing wetland. The drainage, as Wayne has just testified, doesn't materially change its performance. And you would be asking to increase the grade. I haven't looked at the topography on the site plan, but you would be comparing the two. You would be looking to increase the grade around that wetland, as opposed to filling a wetland and creating a wetland. The disturbance seems to be less with the improving the existing wetland.
Yeah, but you don't have the capacity. The capacity with the wetland to the back is more.
Well, they might want to develop the capacity in its existing, elongate it. I mean, I'm not going to opine on how that works, but.
I have to say, this is one of the more confusing proposals I've ever been involved in. So I get it. The applicant needs to correct the drainage. But we talked about alternatives, but what we've been leading up to was why we dismissed all these other things. I mean, you talked about the original looking for infiltration. And you're saying that the groundwater is a controlling factor. There's no place to put infiltration. But you can also do things like put groundwater control devices, which they're do, where you raise it and fill like you do a septic system. But I think we have to come up with, not we have to come up, they have to come up with one plan that is the best resolution for the problem. I don't see raising the grade in the middle of the yard to restore a wetland at a higher elevation in order to get pitch out of there as being that anybody wants, right? I mean, I just don't see it.
I don't know. Look, my purpose is to just understand.
No, I absolutely
Ms. Locke
understand.
represented that there were many alternatives, and I think I'm only hearing 3.
But I think what
But hold on,
they said
just
was
let
they
me-
dismissed all
let
these
me
other
jump in.
things.
But,
Mhm.
and then the applicant has complained about sheet flow going into the house and concerns of flooding. So just from a topographical standpoint, if I berm the property closer to my house to redirect the flow, if it was me, that's what I would be considering. So I'm looking in your best interest. Why would I put a hole farther away from my house where the whole hill's gonna sheet flow? It's a little, I'm gonna speak out of turn here. It's a little commonsensical that the way I would do this versus the way that's being proposed. I'm gonna put a hole in the ground. I'm gonna move a wetland. It's right at the toe of a hill. It's gonna collect water, which I don't know whether it's gonna carry a 50-year storm. That's an agnostic comment. It has no bearing on Wayne whatsoever,
Right.
okay? That thing's gonna fill up with water. I believe every bit, if the neighbors are, once upon a time before these guys were living here or currently, rowing their kayaks around the property. My thought was, if it wants to be, it's always standing. If it wants to be a wetland, it's always going to be a wetland. So the backyard it's a bathtub. It's going to turn into a swimming pool again. That wetland farthest away from the house is going to fill up with water. It won't be able to drain it all out at once. It's going to freeboard over, and it's going to run back to the house. So if I as a commissioner have concerns about the moving parts, moving the wetland, why wouldn't I just work with what I have?
But working with what you had is their resolution is filling it and raising it. Am I missing something in order to
Well,
get the
I
pitch of the
would
driveway?
wait, I haven't seen an articulated plan as to how I'm still noodling on how it needs to get filled 18 inches. My job isn't to design the system for
Correct.
them, right?
Right.
So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But my point would be is the anecdote would be is when a hurricane comes and property starts to flood, where do you stick the sandbags? You stick them up against the foundation. You don't stick them 55 feet in the backyard.
Well, that's why there's a series of proposed drainage solutions
Right,
between
but this
the toe and
property
the-
has a history of just completely flooding.
I
So
understood,
then-
but
and-
Michael, I mean,
and
we can
you
only
ju-
do
and then
what,
the- And then no, I get it. You want to go through
Yeah.
the exercise, of trying to make this thing drain, I get it. Get it to the front yard where the existing drain is.
it's the only reason
I
we're here.
understand. But you also said, just beating this to death, is you went and you dug and you perked and it's wet. The water table is the lawn. So really at the end of the day, you're relying 100, don't quote me on it, you're relying 100% on the drainage. So why am I gonna take a wetland, and just from the sheer topography and the hydrology, why would I move the wetland all the way to the toe of the hill? I would do it for aesthetic purposes. If I need to drain it, I would mechanically rely on the drainage, to which I would say it's germane whether the wetland is located closer to the house or farther away from the house. But again, going back to my flooding standpoint is, I would be like, hey, okay, I could see having lifted grade, have some landscaping, some wetland environmental improvement to that area, and I have a buffer so water isn't running into my house. That might be the trajectory I would go. But I think in your design and your application, you're relying more so on the performance of drainage than a wetland. That's the way I see this. I have no further comments, and I'm really looking forward to what Joanne has.
You stated that you haven't seen the site, and we also stated that the wetland currently is 12 feet from the house. So you talk about landscaping between the current wetland and the house when we have only 12 feet. And keep in mind that there's a exit door in the back. You can't really berm it because you're not going to be able to open. So it's not that simple. And the berm basically may not help. And especially because we don't really have much space. But I appreciate the comment.
Okay, the commissioners, let's open it up to the public if the public would like to talk. Anybody out there who would like to say a few words? No? Okay. Sure.
Hi, Danny Brahimi, homeowner. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board. We have a problem we want to fix. It's a flooding issue. It occurs during flash floods. The yard gets flooded. We've had water in the crawl space, lots of electrical equipment in there. We don't want that to happen anymore. Okay, we're looking for a solution. And Alex and Wayne have come up with multiple plans, to move these wetlands in different areas, and of course, along with his engineering plan in order to drain it. I think we're focused on these like remote hypotheticals and loose with the facts in terms of what the wetland will do. And I don't think neighbors are going to have issues and preferences and complaints, but that doesn't mean that should then prevent you from fixing an issue you have with your property, with your yard, or enhancing it. The two neighbors that opposed our project actually have projects going on in their house where one of them has increased the impervious space, and they're uphill from us. And you went ahead and you approved that without a lot of pushback.
Well, we didn't approve it because it's not within the upland review area. And if they have 400 square feet, if they have 400 square feet of additional impervious surface, they have to come up with a drainage plan. That absorbs water for 24 hours. That absorbs water for 24 hours. Okay. That's the competence of planning and zoning and the building office to make sure that if the neighbors do have a project like that, it's 400 square feet, and that's 20 by 20. So they would have to come up with their own cul-de-sacs, et cetera, et cetera.
Great. So we're on the receiving end, the larger point of everybody else's water, right? We're downhill from there.
Right.
So the natural course of the water is to go to the front stream, and that's what we're trying to, basically make happen, right? So we're trying to ameliorate that condition and help the water flow there. Our house is obviously, obstructing the water flow, and, our preference is for the water to flow to the creek. And, we're going to install this drainage system, and I think it's just a matter of, you know, are we going to increase the elevation of the existing wetland or move it? There aren't any other options. An infiltration system, you know, won't work on the property. There's nothing else to do. I don't know where you want to put the water.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right. Rick, I don't know if we have a complete set of plans.
Well, there was another submittal that was last night that has gone to Joe Canis, the peer reviewer, but we don't have a response back yet.
Okay, so,
Well, we'll have received the review from Joe on Monday, so we don't really have much time.
no, okay. From my perspective, I put a lot of faith in a peer reviewer to go through this. Joe is a hydraulic engineer, so he it's even better for this project. I think what we're gonna have to do, Rick, is keep it open to get Joe's, with the latest set of plans that were delivered last night, right?
Continued.
To continue this until our next meeting.
To get, responses from the peer reviewer,
Yep,
and, any other questions to make sure that the responses are complete,
yep,
that we have a, concise set of plans that address all the matters that have been raised.
mm-hmm,
What I heard tonight also is do you want additional information to confirm that if they do go along with this, that the abutter to the west, if they go ahead with the recreation.
he signed a letter, I can't,
Does he
I don't
understand?
know his competence, I don't know of his knowledge
That's
of.
on him. to
That's on
figure
him.
it out.
That's on him. That's on him, okay? And you sit there go, I hope he does, okay? But I can't, but if he signed the letter, he signed the letter. I can't,
what
I
plans-
can't judge him, I don't know.
Especially if you can,
Why can't you cut around the wetland to swale the topography, to get it to the driveway, get it in a catch basin and let it shoot to the drain? That would be like the cheapest, simplest. Can't you do that?
The grades just don't, the wetland is pretty much the lowest spot, in the rear at least. It's just no way to.
What's the grade differential between the top of asphalt on the driveway and like berming it around the corner? Is it
I'm
a
not
foot? Like, I don't, you stand, the whole property is pretty flat back there. Like, it's not like it's a foot. Like, if you had to,
Well, I don't
just
know.
thinking,
No.
I have water coming off of this hill into the house causing damage, that's the claim. And for all intents and purposes, unless the applicant wants to get up and correct me, topographical photos, the photos you guys have shown, it's a huge backyard, like the way that the driveway wraps around, it's a huge area, and it all is like kind of flat. Is there a way where you can just, scoop, wrap the house on the corner and let the water berm out to the drive,
No,
get it
the
in
grade around the
drainage and out
driveway
to
is
the
about
front?
32.
I'm sorry?
The grade around the driveway is about 32, roughly,
Right.
and the top of that drain is like 30.1. And so it's lower. I mean, and the backyard's not that large, really.
So the width of the yard, the flat yard kind of, is 75 feet. And then we have the wetland, which is 12 feet from the house, but then is 25 wide. And then we have the rest of the yard, which is, let's see,
38.
35, 40 feet outside of the wetland.
On
between
either
the
side.
hill and the wetland.
I mean, trying to call out points of topography at the meeting is probably not a good use of time, but I just would encourage you to maybe look and say.
We have looked at it. I just
No.
don't see.
So
how
you're
you're
saying
gonna-
not possible?
I
Not a-
can't see a way to do that.
It was an alternative that you looked at.
Yeah,
It
we
doesn't work.
looked at it. We looked at every way to try to drain that backyard without without touching the wetland. That was always our first goal, first, second, and third goal, but I just don't see it. I don't see the way. Maybe somebody else can look at it and come up with something. But I
Just
don't
to
see
beat
it.
a dead horse, if you were to take that topography and you were to run it all the way up around in the area of the drive, would that be where you would want to go? Would you want to go towards the driveway, or would you go the other side of the house?
No, we would have to go towards the other side of the house.
Okay,
Worse.
so if you had, you're a great civil engineer, so if you had a topographical difference, right? Is there a device that could collect the water and still convey it, even though the topography is different? Like salmon swimming upstream, it's a bad anecdote. But, but is there a particle separator or something where water could go into that and then it gets somehow it can daylight over distance under the driveway? I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's no way to do it without pumping it. And pumping stormwater is pretty much cardinal skin and expensive and has a lot of issues with it.
All right, just the last ditch effort.
Can we have some feedback, or, I don't know, I know that we'll have to work on engineering and get the endorsement from Joe, but is there anything else you would like to hear or see or we can do to help you with your decision?
Well, very early this morning, the plans came in on your application. So I haven't thoroughly read the plans. We've certainly talked about the narrative, and peer review hasn't come back to the commission. So I think one step at a time right now.
Mhm.
I'm speaking for myself.
One other question, the drainage ditch to the east of the house, if all of this water is being conveyed to that area, you had mentioned that the overflow kind of creates a rain garden. Is there any scenario where the water coming to exceeds that and overtops the road?
Well, the atmospheric rivers, which can dump huge amount of water, and basically the whole neighborhood could be under.
So not a
water.
typical storm?
No.
But no, this drainage is not for typical storm. This is for the flooding event. This is for the heavy duty one.
Mhm.
This system may not be used even once per year, maybe once per 10 years. I don't know what's
Yeah,
designed.
it's
here.
designed for a 50-year storm, and I mean, the analysis shows that the culvert is slightly larger in capacity than the peak rate would
Okay.
be for.
We had studies on, there was a prior application for a piece of property across the street, and we looked at that.
There, across the street?
But it's not directly across the street, it was on the corner of South Road there. So yes, it can overflow, but neighbors came and talked to us about that. Michael Litz, who was here prior, he mentioned, he goes, yeah, it does, but it tends to drain into his pond there.
Oh, okay.
His million-gallon pond. as they
Okay.
call it. It's not a, the flooding in the Tokenique area tends to be tidal. Okay, so that's much farther south
Yeah.
than this area. So I wouldn't, that's from, from neighbors that have actually EPC members who have lived down in Contentment Island.
Okay.
Kept told me that there was flooding down there on certain areas, but not here.
Yeah, I just
But
wanted to make.
it can, but it doesn't. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not a frequent event.
I mean, we've been talking so much about conveying the water to this area, I just wanted to make sure that the capacity is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, that's under the current analysis. One of Joe's comments is to analyze a somewhat larger area than we currently are that's upland. I don't know, it's another 15 or 20%. We're close now, that might put it over, the peak rate might go over what the culvert's capacity is, theoretically at least. If that does happen, I don't think that's really too material, because it will just back up into, as Alex was saying, it would back up into the
His
water
pond.
course, it would
Right,
flood, it,
okay.
and it has an outlet, it has the culvert, unlike the back, which just is stagnant and goes
Right.
nowhere, so.
Understood.
It would fill, it would be, a couple of hours, and it would then,
Plus, there's
discharge.
a couple of other, call them for lack of a better word, swamps.
Mm.
Okay, that on Dogwood, there's, you know, you get on your Arrowhead, you take a right into Dogwood, the house right here has immense amounts of property. And so has immense amounts of capacity to be able to absorb water. I mean, you know, so I mean, so there are properties like that along the way too. You know. Okay, so I need a motion to continue the public hearing. Rick?
Yes.
Yes?
But again, I want to be clear what information you're asking.
Well, I think you stated it before. Well, clear set of plans.
Complete sets of plans and
complete,
a
yeah.
positive endorsement from.
Yes, Joe has to, the peer reviewer has to come with a positive endorsement. Okay,
And ensure that all the plans are complete
Yeah.
and responsive to everything that has been raised previously.
right.
And can I just add one thing? It would be helpful to have an updated narrative to kind of explain what you're presenting, just because the original narrative has been, so much has changed since then.
I think we have to narrow the focus of what we're evaluating.
Mm-hmm.
There's not, there's pieces of this and pieces of that, and you gotta search for it over here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure that I'm 100% clear what they are proposing.
That's why I think a narrative is important.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I did the wetland assessment, and also I compared the current wetland with the proposed. And we did change the location of the wetland, however, the size and the functions wouldn't change, because we just like moved it a little bit, but I will update them. I will make sure that focus on the current plans.
Okay. So should I go ahead and make a
Yes,
motion?
let's have a motion.
Okay, so I make a motion to continue the public hearing for EPC 12-2026, 16 Arrowhead Way, D. Ibrahimi and S. Ibrahimi, to our next EPC meeting in July.
Second. On favor? Done. Okay, moving on, EPC 16-2026, PL 26-50, 471 Mansfield Avenue, Missionary Society of Connecticut, Inc., AKA the Episcopal Church in Connecticut, the Commons, to divide the 14.45 acre property into 4 single-family residential building lots under the conservation subdivision requirements outlined in section 840 of the Darien zoning regulations. The property supports both wetlands and watercourses, including a reach of Stony Brook. Property lies along the west side of Mansfield Avenue, approximately 1,500 feet north of Half Mile Road, and is identified as map number 2, lot number 35. The zone is R2, and it is approximately 14.45 acres.
This is the initial session of the public hearing on this matter. The commission determined that, based on the record, that public hearing would be in the public interest and the possibility of significant impacts. We have received correspondence from the design engineer, representative of the applicant, requesting that the public hearing be opened and then immediately continued. And the continuation is based on what they feel is necessary to adequately respond to our requests for information. We had an environmental analysis done, impact analysis, with recommendations. They would love to respond to what was raised by our peer review consultant, and also be responsive to some number of letters and correspondence that we received from abutting property owners or entities such as the Darien Land Trust.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, it would just be
Do we have to vote on that?
yes.
Carolyn?
So I'm making a motion to.
Continue.
Yeah, to continue the vote. So.
Open and continue the.
Right. So we're opening the public hearing for EPC 16-2026, 471 Mansfield Avenue. Missionary Society of Connecticut Incorporated, AKA the Episcopal Church in Connecticut, the Commons. And I add to that motion to continue the public hearing to our next meeting in July.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? By the way, just one note, can you tell Craig, the landscapers have to stop dumping into the wetland, okay? You
I
know?
can confirm that.
I
I'm
was walking there Monday, and it was fresh grass.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, can I ask who you are, just out of curiosity?
Oh, I'm 69 Bridle Trails.
Okay.
Old Brooks.
Yep, okay, so you're on the other side.
Behind.
Yep.
At the end of Bridle Trail.
Okay, yeah, because, plus there's
That's not
logs,
working, but-
no. And so,
Yeah.
I want to see that stopped, okay? And so he can make the phone calls to whoever.
Thank you. What was your name again? I'm sorry?
What was your name again?
Lowell Brooks, on the record, I go by Scott.
69 Bridle.
So you
Yep.
sat through this whole meeting?
Just for that?
I want to know what's going to happen. My dad was on planning board for 15 years in his town, so
Oh.
I guess old habits die hard.
Well, thank you for staying, but this is going to be an interesting,
Yeah,
this is going to be interesting, so.
I'm not sure I can make the July meeting, but I will keep close tabs. Are there any available materials to the public at this point?
Sure. Michael, he can go on the town website and,
If you
Just
go,
town
if you go
website.
click on the Darien Planning and Zoning Commission
Yeah.
website, there is a center page link for something called Viewpoint.
Yep,
You click Viewpoint, and then it'll open a Google type looking, it's not Google, but Town of Darien with the search bar.
yeah, yeah.
And you can just keyword search or put in by address, and it'll pop up all the documentation that we reviewed during the
Right.
hearings. You can see all the documentation electronically.
Do you have any idea what the last update was to this record? I saw what came through 3 months ago.
Oh,
Well, it's
Oh, no.
real time.
yeah.
It's
oh,
real
there's a lot
time.
more, there's a lot more.
So
Past
you
day or
should-
two.
you
Yeah,
should-
I figured there's a lot going on, so I got a lot of work to do.
Right,
Thank you.
well, you'll have a lot of reading, okay? You'll have a lot of reading, and, I love when the public comes forward and speaks. I'd love to have your questions, comments on this application.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm positively disposed to this, but, it's all in how.
Trust me, it's getting complicated.
I'll bet it.
So-
That, it's been living there for 25 years almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece of property to say the least.
Yeah?
Rick, one more, just to piggyback
Thank
off of
you.
Eric.
Okay, that's fine.
Old King's Highway.
Oh, we have to close,
Well, no, I want to mention it before we,
Oh, do we
No,
want?
no. Old King's Highway, Mr. Shea's project. There's a stockpile of all material on the berm of the water course. The entire, and any form of construction, whether you're inside the structure or on the site, you stockpile, if you have a site that's wide open, you stockpile in the center, or you stockpile in the center of a room when you're trying to build something. And all of his material, I don't know what's there, I just see it in passing, it's all sitting on the berm of the riverbank. Can he please manage his site? So, and do we need to make, if this is gonna be, I brought this up at the last meeting, if this is gonna be an issue, do we need to say there needs to be a silt fence? Do we?
Yeah, there should be a silt fence.
Yeah.
I
there's
thought
a
there was-
silt
I thought
fence.
there
is.
was in advance of
Yeah,
the
but it's
demolition.
like, it doesn't look like, it's like on the water course, it's very close to the water course, so I'll defer to you, but.
But he can take a drive by there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Somebody can take a drive by there
If we need
tomorrow.
to start putting hay, we need to start putting hay bales or wattles or,
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe if we have all that real estate, it doesn't all have to sit on
Yeah,
Bank.
the bank.
no, it
Yeah.
doesn't, no.
Got it.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I make a motion to adjourn EPC meeting of, and regular meeting and public hearing of Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Good night, Channel 79.